Hi, Redeemer family. Thanks so much for joining me today for the Daily Word. It is such a blessing that you would spend time with me. Thank you so much for that. Make sure to hit subscribe if you haven't done that already, just so you don't miss any of the content that we try to put out there to try to feed you God's Word and lead you in righteousness and care for you. And so make sure to hit subscribe. Now we're going to be at the last half of Matthew 19 today, verses 16 to 30. And what we see here is Jesus doing evangelism. And the key to understanding this text is verse 26. I got my Bible here where he says, with man, this is impossible. So they ask, who then can be saved? Verse 26, but Jesus looked at them and said, with man, this is impossible, but with God, all things are possible. So the disciples were hoping, hey, this sounds too hard to be saved. Is anybody going to be saved? And he says, well, no, it's impossible. It's impossible. Now, why is salvation possible? First, we see in verse 16, because of God's goodness. There is only one who is good, and that is God alone. Second reason it's impossible to be saved is because of God's rules. God's rules show us that we're not good. So if you would enter life, keep the commandments. Well, haven't done that, even though this guy says I've done it. He says in verse 20, all these I've kept. What still do I lack? But the third reason salvation is impossible is because of God's rivals. This isn't salvation by poverty, go sell all you have and give to the poor. That's not what this is. Jesus is getting at, notice he is called a rich man. Or actually in other passages, he's called a rich man. It says there in verse 22, he heard this, he went away because he had great possessions. This is a rival in his heart. This is an idol. Jesus says in Luke chapter 9, Matthew chapter 10, deny yourself. Take up your cross and follow me. Deny yourself everything that keeps you from Jesus. Here Jesus is getting at this rival in his heart to coming and following him, which for this guy was his great possessions. What does it look like? So what do we do when salvation is impossible? Well, going back to verses 13 to 15 from yesterday, we depend on Jesus. We trust in him. We give our lives to him. And we do it like a child. Again, humble trust, submissive faith. A faith that turns from everything that would keep us from Jesus and submits ourselves, body, mind, soul, to him. He's in charge. He's the Lord. He's the King. For those who do that, Jesus says, verses 28 to 30, he says that blessings, you'll have blessings in this life, blessings in the next for doing so. But he ends in verse 30, interestingly, with a warning, where he says, but many who are first will be last, and the last will be first. We hear that, we've heard it, we just kind of read past it, but what is he saying there? A person who is first would be someone like the rich man. In this life, they were first, they had it all, but on Judgment Day, they will be last. Idea there being they will be lost forever. But those who are last, believers who've lost everything, who've given away everything in order to follow Jesus, whatever it was that they had that would keep them from Jesus, they got rid of it, even persecution in this life, all of that, they're the last here. But they're the first on Judgment Day. They're in heaven forever. And finally, the question I want to leave you with is, which group are you in? Which group do you want to be in? It's one thing to be first in this life, to gain the whole world, but to forfeit and lose your soul? Is it really worth it? Or is it worth it to give your life to Jesus? Humbly come to him. Put away all trust in yourself and your goodness. You don't have any. Compare your life to the 10 Commandments. And put away all devotion to whatever keeps you from Jesus, whether it's friends or fame or whatever it might be that you're like, I can't do Jesus yet. There's some sin I need to have. No, there isn't. Jesus is better. Come to him. Believe in him. Give your life to him. He is better than anything you could ever give your life to. And he makes sure that you know that. And so if you hear his voice right now, do not harden your heart, but come to him, believe, and you will be saved. See you tomorrow.